Puedes entrar a YouTube y ver.
¿Qué lo está?
Así está transmitiendo.
¿Sí?
Sí.
Ahí.
Ya tú te haces cerrar acá entonces. Ya. Ahí estamos los dos. Este está los dos.
Ahí. Ahora la cosa es la camarita, ¿no ves, no? Aquí. Con esta camarita no se puede.
No, no la reconocí. Ahí, ¿no? Sería lo ideal. Solo necesitamos alargador.
Sí, está. Estoy ayudando. Ha dicho que saca.
¿Quién al trader? Ah, ya. Ah, el José. A ver, llámalo José. Tráelo, José. Ya está.
Sí.
Tengo los.
Coño, pero me traje la camisa que no era.
Sí.
La otra es una camisa.
¿Qué tal? ¿Qué preocupados para transmitirle a la arena?
Ah, ya.
Sí, hablamos esta mañana.
Ya.
Ya estamos transmitiendo.
Entonces,
Perfecto,
Yuri,
puedes saludar.
¿cómo estás?
Bien, pues, bien. Ya nos
Ya
hemos
todos
visto.
están viendo.
Ah, excelente.
Mi hermano. Yuri, colega de y José, ¿lo conoces?
Ya nos hemos
Sí,
encontrado.
sí, nos vimos
Yuri,
abajo.
José.
Ya nos hemos abrazado también.
Ya.
Allá está la gente de IGB.
Ya.
¿Por qué no? Sí, no sé qué, no sé cuánto. Vamos a coordinar, ¿no?
Hemos hecho llegar la invitación.
Sí, es que la participar. Sí, creo que no hemos avanzado. Entonces, vamos a coordinarlo, pero después.
Claro.
Porque dice que cada niño ya vamos a arrancar. Así que preparándote.
Ya estamos transmitiendo desde casa.
Bien.
¿Ves? Aquí lo que estoy hablando.
Entonces, eso lo cuadrar nomás, ¿no?
Y después, esto es un riesgo, ¿no?
Mejor no, así nomás.
Sí, sí,
Así
sí.
por aquí lo haré cuadrar. Por aquí.
Ya. Esta es la página de esto nomás necesito que veas.
Por aquí veo. ¿Cuál es la página?
El Facebook. No, puedes quitarle ancho de banda.
Ahí.
De aquí nomás. O sea, esto está apuntando la cámara.
Es que por aquí para hacerlo cuadrado, sí debe estar bien aquí. ¿No?
Ya, ok. 0 espectadores tenemos.
¿Qué hoy?
Sí. Estas investigaciones geográficas.
Va a ser así. Javier, sí. Tu apertura. Sí. No, tu apertura. Aperturas tú, yo lo escribí, el habla Virgin, yo hablo yo. Entonces, bienvenido, porque todos le vamos a la U. Sí. Porque ella va a leer la carta de...
No sé.
Entonces, Manolo dice que tú vas a hablar primero como el anfitrión, voy segundo, tercero Virginie y cuarto cierra Manolo.
No, Virgin va a cerrar.
Manolo me dijo al revés.
Está bien, en orden social último es Virgin.
Ya, ok.
¿Cuál es la carta?
Sí, sí.
Así lo haremos cuadrado.
Lo ves lo mismo en el cuadrito de aquí.
Ay, es que al hacer eso va a firmar la cara.
Ya hay 2 espectadores. Ya hay 2 espectadores.
¿Sabes listo? Así está bien cuadrado.
Excuse me, please. The persons who didn't sign in the list for the translators, please come here. Because people just pick it up and sit down. Please come here to the man with white. That man, are you okay?
Yeah, just in case anybody didn't understand, if you, when you came in the room, picked up interpreting headset without putting your name down, they'd like to keep track of who has which headset. So if you'd be so kind as to give just this gentleman your name, thanks.
Yeah. Thank you.
Que el cargador tiene la lista. Vamos a iniciar con la transmisión en vivo para todos los que nos están viendo del Geographies for Peace, la inauguración, todo el evento. Muchas gracias por contactarse con nosotros.
You finish, turn on.
No tenemos.
Primero luego el evento hasta que llegue ese dispositivo. No tiene imagen del evento. No puede entrar el Wi-Fi. Eso yo solo tengo.
Buenas tardes. Muy buenas tardes a todos. Buenas tardes. ¿Empezamos la traducción? Bueno, muy buenas tardes. Disculpas por el retraso. Vamos a iniciar con el evento de Geographies for Peace. Muy agradecido de recibir a todos y todas aquí en La Paz, Bolivia. Yo sé que han venido de todas partes del mundo. Tenemos colegas de África, Europa, Estados Unidos, Asia y, por supuesto, Latinoamérica. Nosotros, como autoridades de la Universidad Mayor de San Andrés, estamos muy honrados de poder recibirles y les deseamos lo mejor de las suertes acá en La Paz, una de las ciudades más altas del mundo. Permítanme presentarme, soy el director del Instituto de Investigaciones Geográficas de la carrera de Ingeniería Geográfica de la Universidad Mayor de San Andrés, que ha tenido el gusto y el honor de poder organizar este evento. Hace unos 2 años nos encontramos con Elena del ACNES en Cuba y en los pasillos del 15º Encuentro de Geógrafos de América Latina conversamos sobre la posibilidad de hacer un encuentro de Geografías por la Paz. Y básicamente fue la idea de Elena, que lamentablemente no está ahora, de realizar este encuentro. Ella tenía todo armado, todo pensado junto con Virgin y otros especialistas a nivel mundial para poder realizar este evento. Y pensando en las ciudades en el mundo que podrían ser, qué mejor ciudad que en La Paz, en la ciudad de La Paz, Bolivia, hacer un encuentro de Geografías por la Paz. Y además pensando que en el futuro se están complicando las situaciones regionales y geopolíticas, tanto en continentes como Medio Oriente, ¿no? Continentes en Asia, en África y también en Estados Unidos. Haciendo ese breve análisis, vimos que Latinoamérica todavía se sentía la paz, y es un lugar donde es importante para poder realizar este encuentro, sin conflictos, y sobre todo como geógrafos poder discutir cómo hacer la paz desde la geografía. Bueno, para mí Elena es una maestra, Elena del ACNES es una maestra que me ha enseñado mucho. Nosotros hemos sido solo los anfitriones y los actores que hemos tratado de llevar lo más adelante posible este proyecto. Y ya toda la idea es de Elena y del equipo de geopolítica de Geographies for Peace. Con ese antecedente, yo les quiero agradecer la presencia y les deseo la mejor estancia aquí en La Paz y podamos producir como resultado, desde este punto en clave geográfico, poder influenciar en todo el mundo nuestro discurso de hacer la paz desde la geografía. Muchas gracias.
Muy buenas tardes. Discúlpenme, pero en esta oportunidad quiero presentarme. Soy el director de la carrera de Ingeniería Geográfica de la Universidad Mayor de San Andrés. Tengan ustedes bienvenidos acá en este Estado plurinacional de Bolivia, que es un Estado pacifista y que espera que las deliberaciones que se tengan en las geografías por la paz sean muy fructíferas y de mucho provecho para la paz del mundo. Estamos viviendo días muy conflictivos a nivel internacional, de ahí que este evento para mí, particularmente como representante de la carrera de Ingeniería Geográfica y como boliviano en particular, es de mucho significado. Permítanme en esta oportunidad hacerles algunas aclaraciones de lo que es y de lo que representa el Estado plurinacional de Bolivia. Bolivia se constituye en un Estado social, de derecho plurinacional, comunitario, libre, independiente, soberano, democrático, intercultural, descentralizado y con autonomías. Ese es el texto que encabeza la Constitución Política del Estado Plurinacional de Bolivia. Y para hacer hincapié a este evento que tenemos, para refrendar en esta oportunidad este magno evento internacional de Geografías por la Paz, quiero hacer referencia al artículo 10 de esto que es la Carta Magna del Estado Plurinacional de Bolivia, donde nosotros, como bolivianos, nos identificamos como fieles seguidores de la paz. Pese a que Bolivia en diferentes oportunidades ha sufrido muchas agresiones y hoy en día inclusive vamos discutiendo nuestros problemas limítrofes del Estado boliviano con el Estado chileno, nosotros siempre buscamos la paz. Y como pacifistas que somos, hemos podido expresar en su oportunidad lo siguiente. Bolivia es un Estado pacifista que promueve la cultura de la paz y el derecho a la paz, así como la cooperación entre los pueblos de la región y el mundo, a fin de contribuir al conocimiento mutuo, al desarrollo equitativo y a la promoción de la interculturalidad con pleno respeto a la soberanía de los estados. La manera de concebir en este momento el orden mundial tiene que basarse en la paz. En ese término que nosotros hemos llamado o hemos denominado como interculturalidad. En el mundo existimos diferentes estados, pero también con una carga que es nuestra cultura propia. Como bolivianos tenemos nuestra identidad propia, pero respetando la identidad del resto de los estados. Como bolivianos tenemos una cultura, una dignidad, una forma de pensar en lo que se llama la ciencia, la tecnología y la educación en general. De ahí que nosotros, desde el lugar que nos corresponde, desde la carrera de Ingeniería Geográfica, promovemos sobre todo el conocimiento en términos de la paz. La paz es un principio para poder encontrarnos. Cuando nos encontramos entre diferentes personas que venimos de diferentes latitudes, pensamos que tiene que haber la complementariedad. Lo que traen de afuera y lo que nosotros exportamos hacia afuera tienen que encontrarse en un contexto de armonía para poder construir la paz social, la paz mundial y salir adelante en esto que es el cuidado a la humanidad. El día de ayer, 22 de abril, Día de la Madre Tierra, a nivel universal, a nivel mundial, se han gestado marchas, se han gestado movimientos desde las universidades, desde los laboratorios científicos, para poder reclamar que haya atención a la ciencia, básicamente. Porque la ciencia, si bien es cierto que tiene que tener un aspecto neutral, es política, pero es política no partidaria. Una política de la ciencia debe ser el cuidado a la humanidad. Estamos en días donde algunos poderosos de este mundo quieren romper el Acuerdo de París sobre las emisiones de gases que afectan al calentamiento global. Estamos en contra de que se afecte a este planeta. Bolivia, desde sus diversas instancias educativas, desde sus diversas instituciones, busca el cuidado y la mantención, la armonía para preservar la vida en toda la tierra. De ahí que, distinguidos señores participantes, profesionales que hoy han venido a tratar esta hermosa conferencia temática, Geografías por la Paz, sean ustedes bienvenidos y por favor que sus deliberaciones sean de éxito y mucha salud para la paz mundial. Muchas gracias.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Yuri Sandoval, and I am part of the organizing committee. I'm going to read my speech. Sorry for my bad English, so I expect you can understand me. Dear members of the International Geographical Union, fellow geographers, and to all friends in general, I would like to welcome all of you to this important event, such as the International Conference on Geographies for Peace. Today is a historic day for the Bolivian geography, because it is the first time that an event of this magnitude is carried out. With so many geographer colleagues and so many specialists in turn in different topics related to geographies for peace. In a world that seeks a lot of hope, when what you have is usually bad news about events linked to war, refugees, starvation, and death. We hope that from this conference, a message through the IGU can come out of process of peace, freedom, and justice. And what a coincidence that Geographies for Peace is held in the city of La Paz, city of the peace. Although, ironically, it's not a city with a lot of peace, because being the seat of government is the scene of frequent struggles of social movements, labor sectors, school teachers, medical and social insurance, merchants, indigenous people, and many other sectors that struggle day by day to achieve their most felt demands. These movements will not end until all their requirements will be fulfilled, which day by day cause being attended and satisfied in all their needs. I also want to say that I feel very happy because next to us is a group of our Bolivian students, young and eager to hear from you about your experiences, research, and work that for us will surely be an invaluable source of knowledge. This new knowledge will allow us to grow in wisdom and capture other visions of another latitudes of the world, to propose that this world be a better place. We know as organizers, we may have some mistakes, which we hope you can apologize to us. We did the best as we could, and believe that in the future, we will do much better, learning from this experience. So, if you find some flaws, please have to us only patience. We will try to solve any problem that may arise. I would like to mention too Elena de las Bolivia. Unfortunately, she could. The realization of this event was possible. Elena's health improves soon. I want to end making known to you the slogan of the coat of arms of the Department of La Paz, which says, "The disagreements in concord, in peace and love are united, and people of peace founded for perpetual memory," which draws that sense of hope that we seek to achieve with this conference. We hope you enjoy your stay in our city and you can achieve all of your goals with great success. Thank you very much and welcome again to Bolivia.
Buenas tardes con todos y con todas. Soy Juan Manuel Delgado, soy presidente de la Comisión de Estudios Latinoamericanos de la Unión Geográfica Internacional, soy de la Universidad Nacional Mayor de San Marcos de Perú. Sean todos bienvenidos y bienvenidas. Para mí es un honor. Hablo en nombre de la Comisión de Estudios Latinoamericanos. Para nosotros es un placer ser anfitriones a través de Bolivia y la Universidad Mayor de San Andrés. Quiero agradecer primeramente a los colegas bolivianos por ser grandes anfitriones, por ser unos grandes compañeros y por acompañar un sueño que comenzó hace 14 años cuando éramos estudiantes y nos juntamos por primera vez en Bolivia en el 2003 para construir un movimiento geográfico latinoamericano que buscaba emular lo que hacían las otras disciplinas, sean historia, antropología o sociología en Latinoamérica. Eso para nosotros hoy día se materializa organizando este evento y siendo anfitriones con geógrafos y geógrafas de todas partes del mundo que vienen de Oceanía, de África, de Europa y de las Américas. Para nosotros es un honor y creo que eso es muy importante decirlo. Es un sueño hecho realidad. ¿Por qué? Porque ha sido todo un acontecimiento juntar comisiones nuevas, como la Comisión de Estudios Latinoamericanos, con comisiones muy consolidadas, como la Comisión de Geografía Política o la Comisión de Geografía Histórica, y ha sido todo un reto. Y ha sido todo también un intercambio de saberes y un intercambio cultural. Y creo que eso ha sido lo más importante para nosotros, aprender de todos y de todas. Para nosotros ha sido de mucho gusto y placer ser los anfitriones. Esperemos que estos 3 días sean de un debate, un intercambio de saberes muy placentero, pero también que nos lleven a poder resolver o en todo caso poder iniciar los estudios o concretar estudios de lo que ya vienen trabajando cada uno de ustedes en las temáticas que tienen que ver con geografías para la paz, ¿no? Cuando Javier y Yuri me contaron lo que habían conversado con el líder Alnese en Cuba, me llamó mucho la atención, porque es un campo muy específico de la geografía por la paz. Tuve que estudiar un poco para poder comprender, ¿no? este campo muy específico para mí, que es nuevo, pero muy interesante y muy rico. Espero que estos 3 días sean muy placenteros para ustedes, se abran el debate, se abran redes de conocimiento, podamos concretar algo muy importante que nos interesa a los norteamericanos, es las relaciones que tuviéramos con los diferentes geógrafos, los decisores de geografía, de departamentos, facultades en los diversos continentes. Para nosotros es muy importante que nuestros estudiantes logren conocerlos a ustedes, intercambien. Quizás ahorita no están por acá, pero quiero primero también no dejar de agradecer a los estudiantes bolivianos, ¿no? Quiero agradecer a los estudiantes bolivianos por su paciencia, ¿no? Sé que han sido días muy intensos, sé que ha sido muy duro el trabajo, sé que estamos desde temprano acá, pero bueno, es parte de ser el anfitrión. Ya nos tocará disfrutar en unas horas más el evento. Y sean todos bienvenidos. Y como les dije, esto es un sueño hecho realidad y espero que lo disfruten. Muchas gracias.
Buenas tardes. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Virginie Mamadou from the University of Amsterdam, and I'm the co-chair of the IGU Commission on Political Geography. But at this moment, I'm just reading a letter from Elenia Delaniese. As you know by now, she has been one of the major organizers of this conference. And unfortunately, she's recovering from, fortunately she's recovering, but she had a very severe back injury, and she has to renounce to come to La Paz to be with us and enjoy the conference with us. So I'm just reading this letter from Elena. And could you please put the picture so that you also see how Elena looks like. If it doesn't work, maybe at the end of the letter. Dear friends, after thousands of mails, being in contact with you again with a letter sounds a bit ironic. When we started dreaming about this conference in Cuba at EGAL conference in 2015, I knew that it was going to be a difficult task. Certainly, I did not imagine that I would not be able to come. However, as a candidate to the vice presidency of the IGU, I promised that I would devote all my efforts in making of the IGU a really global platform and to encourage participation to its conferences of scholars from every corner of the world, also those little represented in international arenas. Actually, the IGU is already quite global, and this is the reason why I like it. Not its long history, but also the fact that it was born as a very international and multilingual venture, even if it has progressively reduced its languages to 2 official languages, English and French, and 1 effective English, often broken English, like mine, she said, she wrote, but also like mine. However, in the past, in international geographical congresses, you could speak French, but also other languages. And so in Rome, you could speak also Italian. in Rio, Portuguese, and so on. This time, we try to speak two languages, English and Spanish. I know that it is going to be difficult for many of us, but we will try to create a common space for conversations. I use the term conversations on purpose to quote the British geographer Doreen Massey. Indeed, the idea of a bilingual conference came to me in Cuba, since I was fascinated by the richness of Latin American geography, by the many common aspects and topics it shared with Italian and French geographies, by the many stimuli it offered, and by the desire of opening a challenge of double exchange. At first, I would have liked to organize a conference about territory, the many meanings of the concept territory, and the possibility of confronting and mixing the ideas that we get from Claude Raffestin, from Milton Santos, from Doreen Massey, in order to overcome the traditional notion of territory as a bound portion of space, and to develop the relational concept of the territory also in political geography. Though I believe that such an idea should be quite useful in order to explain that closing borders, for example, does not mean preventing terrorism. However, such a conference might have attracted some political geographers, while I had in mind something more inclusive. We can keep the project for a future conference if you like it. I promise I will not sleep again on the web platform on a railway station. Actually, Elena was going to take a train to Rome, to the Geographical Society, so it was a work accident. So peace. By the way, this is the first thematic conference organized by the IGU, and peace is a topic which can attract attention of many geographers. Indeed, the idea was received quite well, both by the members of the executive committee of the IGU and by many IGO commissions. 7 of them were involved in the organization, and I would like to thank all their chairs and board members. Political geography, geography of tourism, leisure and global change, geographical education, history of geography, global change and human mobility, marginalization, globalization, and regional and local responses, and of course, Latin American studies. We received a big numbers of abstracts. We had some problems in mutual understanding. We lost some people because of traveling costs. We lost some because of visa issues, of family obligation, and health problems. Still, the conference program is vibrant, and I'm desperately sorry not to be with you and to be able to listen to some of the exacting panels. I would like to thank particularly Javier, Yuri, and Manolo, the local organizers, and also Virginie and Saga for their extraordinary help in organizing the conference. I'm sorry I left a gap in the program. I wanted to give a talk about an Italian geographer, Arcangelo Ghisleri, I hope I say it right, who was very much involved in peace movements at the beginning of the 20th century. At the time of the Italian colonial venture in the region, which was known by then as Tripolitania, which is now called Libya. Ghisleri, a strong opponent to colonialism, decided to follow a double strategy. From one side, he gave some public speeches, where he denounced the barbarian ideology of colonialism. From the other, since he knew that not everyone would be convinced by his philosophical ideas, he followed a more practical way. He wrote a book about the geography of the region in order to demonstrate to those that were interested only in the economic and strategic aspects of the conquest that it was pointless. So he really used geographical knowledge to promote peace. Then he moved to Lugano, and he founded a journal, Connobium, open to every political, philosophical, religious stances, including gender issues and freedom for homosexuality, which at the time was still considered a criminal offense in Italy. Connobium had also a section called Guerra alla Guerra, War to Wars, because it was a pacifist journal, of course. But in 1914, Gilsbury decided that he was pro-war. Since then, he had been accused of being very incoherent for the rest of his life. But he was not. He simply believed that in that context, in order to reach peace, a war against the European empires was necessary. The rest of the story for a future occasion. I mention it just to say that the word peace in the past, but maybe also in the present, may have different meanings. Maybe it has different meanings also among us. Mutual understanding is somehow difficult, not only when we speak different languages. Let's make an effort in this sense. Ciao, Elena. Muchas gracias.
Bueno, muchas gracias a la mesa de honor. Les agradecemos sus palabras, también a todos los presentes. En este momento, sin más ni más, porque estamos con la hora en proceso, llamamos a los expositores de la siguiente mesa, por favor, la mesa número 1, y a los moderadores también. Muchas gracias.
Para mí, los tres nomás son. English and Spanish. Good. English and Spanish.
Okay, we are going to start the program of this afternoon. We invite you to have a seat. Okay, the first speaker will be Virginie Mamadou from University of Amsterdam, and she's going to talk about us politics of geographies and geopolitics for peace. Please, Virginie, welcome.
Good afternoon, me again, but I must say, let's see if it works. Yeah, fantastic. So I will speak about political geographies and geopolitics for peace, try to open the conference in content-wise. It's a real honor, of course, to be to welcome you to La Paz. And what struck me when we were working at this conference and preparing the program is, of course, the diversity of approaches, the diversity of geographies involved, the diversity of geographers involved. And we hope that this will be a very fruitful encounter or series of encounters across the language divided, but also across the subdiscipline of geographies, the subdisciplines and also the approaches to geography. And of course, the first questions that come to mind is what is peace and what is geography? And don't be afraid, I will not try to answer all this in 20 minutes. But just to stress that peace means so many different things to different people, and often it is opposed to different things. And peace as not war, as not conflict, as not violence, or opposed to fear, or peace in a more positive way as justice, was said as principle by in a few minutes ago, as origin, and so on. And to just start a little bit our discussions, I thought it might be an idea to, from the perspective of my Commission on Political Geography, to open by way of introduction with a few remarks about three clusters of works on geography and for peace. Geography in general, political geography, and then more specifically, geopolitics. And the first one, and of course I apologize for forgetting a lot of other approaches and also for not naming everyone I would like to name, especially because it's so thrilling. I'm so thrilled to see so many of these approaches represented today at this conference. So let's start with geography in general and the idea that geographical knowledge is so important for power and for peace, but also for those actually making peace impossible. And we all know how important geographical knowledge is as a weapon. And the famous quotes, I think one of the most famous one by Mackinder, saying that geography is an aid to statecraft, is meant as a help to those in power. Or the one by Yves Lacoste, a French geographer in the 70s, very famously saying that geography is foremost to wage war. The kind of knowledge we have is foremost to wage war. And in the past, I tried to look at this issue in a chapter called Geography and War and Geographers and Peace, in that book edited by Colin Flint already quite some time ago, on the Geography of War and Peace. Because I was struck by the fact that although geography has been indeed knowledge that has been very much connected to power, to military, especially to the state, geographers for long have been also working for peace and trying to use their knowledge for, to advance peace. But in that chapter, I was very much focused on a very simple idea of peace as non-war. I was looking really at actually how war also has changed in time. The idea of war waging as being a normal way of doing foreign relations, which was the case 100 years ago, and has disappeared with the establishment of the United Nations nowadays. But also the fact that military technologies have changed dramatically after the Second World War with nuclear technology, and that in that context also the role of geography and the role of geographers have changed. But so I would like to memorize this fact that geography, when you look at the history of the discipline, it has been institutionalized as an academic discipline at the same time as the modern territorial state was shaped. And it has been very much linked to the development of this modern territorial state. It has been linked to nationalism, to nation building, state building. It has been linked to imperialism and colonialism, and especially European colonialism and state projects in that. At that sense, geography has been a tool for urban, regional, and economic planning, and it has been also a tool to support national projects in competition between states. So in terms of economic competition, but colonialism and war as well. And geography has been a school topic, a school subject, part of state education to actually shape good citizens that were loyal to the state. And we tend to forget that actually from the start, there were also alternative geographies. There were other geographers that were trying to develop a different way of looking at geography. And I would like to remind us to the anarchist critique of this kind of earlier geography, especially people like Élisée Leclerc, French geographer, and Kropotkin, a Russian geographer, who were actually developing their idea for an alternative geographies at the same time that they were developing their political ideas about anarchism. And in that way, that was both an alternative to the modern territorial state and an alternative to the Marxist alternative that were developed at the time. I hope you can read this, but if not, what I would like to stress is the connection between anarchism and geography and sociology to some extent, as opposed to the connection between Marxism and economic science and history, and the commonalities between the kind of questions geographers and anarchists are actually asking, and the fact that they are more sensitive to, for example, to local contexts and also more prone to look at emancipation as a project. So when we look back at people like Élisée Leclerc, for example, you see that at the time they have developed a geography that was really an alternative to that geography for the powerful that we know now and also tend to acknowledge. And so a geography that was not about war and imperialism, but more about globalization in the sense of cultural globalization, and mixing geography that was more about peace and emancipation of individual people, mutual aid and solidarity, a geography that was not about Orientalism, but more about empathy when it encounters with others, and a geography that was not so much about determinism as it was maybe the dominant vision was in 100 years ago, but much more a dialectic of progress and regress. So that would be the first point, and it is very interesting that we see a revival of interest in anarchist geographies in the past decades, both in the Anglo-American international geography and French geography. So there are a few examples of people who have written a lot about Kropotkin, Reclus, and their heritage. And I'm happy to see this current represented in the conference too. The second cluster I would like to talk about is political geography. Would be no surprise, of course, since I'm representing the Commission on Political Geography. And here again, political geography has a bit the reputation of being a state-centric subdiscipline, busy with topics related to the state, territory, borders, and so on. But it has been, again, the heritage that we have. The first person using the term political geography, Friedrich Ratzel, was indeed talking about the state and the evolution of the state, and was looking at state formation, territory, the natural borders of the state, competition with other states, Lebensraum. I don't even know how to translate it into English. I'm sorry. and geopolitics. But here too, it's important to stress that with the revival of political geography that started in the late 1970s and early 1980s, we saw an expansion of a blossoming of the subdiscipline, but also an extension of the kind of themes addressed. And I would like to mention two important events. The first one was the creation of this academic journal, Political Geography, at the time, Political Geography Cotton. And I'm particularly pleased to have one of the founding editor, John O'Loughlin, with us at the conference. And John O'Loughlin and Peter Taylor wrote a research agenda for the very first issue of Political Geography. And many of the themes that they were highlighting them were indeed related to the state. It was electoral geography, international relations, administrative geography, borders. And, but as we'll see, it has changed since. Another very important event at the same time, at the beginning of the 80s, was actually the creation of the Commission on Political Geography at the IGU. It was not called like that. It was not called a World Political Map. First, it's a study group, so it's a kind of probation, and then when you are accepted, you become a commission. But it was called the Commission of the World Political Map because there were problems with the phrase political geography that was seen as too political and was not acceptable for the Soviet Union at the time. I don't know why they think that World Political Map is less contested as political, but that was the idea. And interestingly, John O'Loughlin, so if I may, representing the journal, and Herman van der Wuster representing the commission at the time, they wrote a very influential paper for Progress in Human Geography, which was called Geography, War and Peace, and where they were trying to actually also promote some kind of engagement of political geography to peace studies. And it was criticized at the time by Geotol for being too much focused on negative peace. So meaning just the absence of war and being still very state-centric. And but it was very, very influential, the fact that they took that step. And since this political geography of world peace, that was more about mapping conflicts between states and trying to understand why in some situation conflicts escalated to war and one in other situation they can be pacified. But since we have seen a huge increase in the kind of peace studies that political geographers are doing and a lot of different approaches. And I've put here a few of the main journals that have been publishing a lot about peace from the perspective of political geography. And of course, it's more actually to acknowledge my limitation. So I'm familiar, they are all English language journals. I'm familiar with that literature, I'm familiar with the French political geography, but I'm very ignorant of what is published in Spanish and in Portuguese, unfortunately, and I look forward to learn a lot more about this during these few days. Still limited to the English-speaking and the French-speaking political geography, I can say that there has been such a huge plurality of research agendas, of methodologies, epistemologies employed, and also, you could say, of political geographies of peace since the time. And a lot of different topics that expanded way beyond the states, talking about gender, about migration, about human security, and elaborating research at multiple scalar levels, so not only the state, but also the local, the regional, and the relation between these scales, or in certain cases, like in Europe, the supranational state case. I just want to make to bring to your attention two recent initiatives, one by Sam Brunn from the University of Kentucky, who is actually preparing an atlas, an international atlas of peace, and so calling for contributions about all kinds of aspects about peacemaking, conflicts, justice, all kinds of different definition of peace. There will be more details about it in flyers that will be circulated tomorrow, if I'm correct. And the other one is a call for papers from L'Espace Politique, which is a French journal which published in English and French, but they told me that they were willing to actually consider for this this case also Spanish language articles, and they prepare a special issue on borders of war and borders of peace. There's a connection between these two fields of peace geographies and borders studies. And indeed, in the particularly prolific perspectives that have been developed in political geography, I think there are two main bodies of work on critical border studies and critical geopolitics. And that's the last thing I would like to address, this, the contribution of geopolitics. Now, this is again the same story. Geopolitics, the origin of that perspective is very much linked to states, to actually even authoritarian states in Germany, but also in other places. But here again, we see a reclaiming of geopolitics from the beginning of the end of the 1980s, the beginning of the 1990s, where geographers especially, but also sometimes international relations scholars have reclaimed geopolitics and the topic, the question of the relation between power and space, and between the political and geographical. And they have developed a lot of different approaches to that, very different from the traditional geopolitical approaches that were pretty much about physical, geographical determinism. Now, critical geopolitics is probably the most famous schools, and again, it's a pleasure to have Simon Dalby among the participants to this conference, because he was one of the pioneers in this field. So the idea, if I may summarize in a few words, the idea is to actually question geopolitical imaginations, the importance of geopolitical knowledge, geographical knowledge, geopolitical representations of the self, of the other, in the shaping of geopolitical imagination, but also in the shaping of policies, foreign policies especially. And here too, we see an enormous diversification of the research questions and perspectives and methodologies used in that sense. And for example, quite recently for this companion to critical geopolitics, Nick Megaron, also my pleasure to have him in the conference, was reviewing actually geopolitics of peace and violence, and so not peace and war, but peace and violence, and was identifying a lot of different approaches. I cannot expand on discussing all of them, but different approaches to peace from a geopolitical perspective. I'm also, this is another hat I have today, I'm also one of the editors of a journal called Geopolitics, and I'm pleased to say that we have put together a virtual special issue on geopolitics and peace and geopolitics for peace that will be online for shortly by putting together articles that have been published in the journal over the past 15 years and that are addressing peace in different ways. Peace, equality and justice, critical geopolitics and peace, but also how peace is sometimes promoted and negotiated and done in many sides, feminist perspectives and peace in the everyday, and also a review essay on major books that have been recently published on geographies for peace. Last point that I would like to make is related to that is that for me, seems like an urgent issue to look at peace as a geopolitical discourse. When peace is used, peace or pacification of peace process, this kind of expression are used more often than not actually to hide all kind of violences, direct, structural violence, cultural violence, and so on. So I think it's very important to look at peace and question that as a geopolitical discourse. This is just one example, the Nobel Peace Prize, where here you see an American president getting it, and of course, when you look at what is done in name of the president, you can question that a lot. Another example has been the European Union in 2012, who got the prize for its contribution to the peace on the continent since the Second World War, which is of course something which is real, but it got the prize at the time of enormous social unrest in Europe, in Greece, and in many other places with Indignados and so on, a moment where the EU was completely failing in its neighborhood in Libya, in Syria, and later on, as we saw, in Ukraine. So you see how peace is actually used. And even here in La Paz, when you think of it, when you think of the place name, the name of the place, which is referring to peace, and it has been, of course, very appealing to think of having a conference on geographies of peace in La Paz. But when you think of it, the name and the name of the city, Our Lady of Peace, is related to the what is called the pacification of Peru, which was, of course, a very it's an issue of war waging. The name was changed later as the Peace of Ayacucho, which is again referring to a very violent event. So we should also place name are also geopolitical discourse, of course. Still, it was, of course, it is very important to be here for me, and I'm very pleased to see this conference happening after so much work. And again, I'm so sorry that Elena is not with us to be part of our discussions. I think we will have a lot of very fruitful discussion, I hope we'll do, with this plurality of approaches that are represented, real encounters, conversations, and that we will be able to shape actually new research agenda for geographies for peace. I wish you all a very successful conference. Thank you very much for your attention.
Good afternoon, everybody. So let me introduce myself. I am Marcelo Lopes de Souza from Brazil. More specifically, I work at the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. Actually, I'm here, I'm sitting here just to coordinate the session. Our colleague Yuri Sandoval was doing my job at the beginning, but from now on, I will coordinate the session. It's almost a self-managed session, but I will try to do this ugly job of controlling time. So, ahora vamos a tener el profesor Heriberto Cairo Caru de la Universidad Complutense de Madrid, presentando el trabajo Geografías de la Paz y Geografías Pacifistas, una diferenciación conceptual y ético-política.
Muchas gracias. Voy a hablar en otra de las lenguas imperiales, en vez del inglés, el español, para hacer justicia a esas conversaciones que sugería Elena desde lejos que tuviéramos. Me parece una magnífica idea el tener una conferencia bilingüe. Quisiera empezar con una cita, supongo que conocida para la mayor parte de todos, de Kropotkin, de ese geógrafo ruso que mencionaba antes Virginie. La cita: la idea de que la geografía debe enseñarnos desde nuestra más tierna infancia que todos somos hermanos, cualquiera sea nuestra nacionalidad. En nuestro tiempo de guerras, de arrogancia nacional, de celos y odios nacionales hábilmente alimentados por gente que persigue sus propios intereses egoístas, personales o de clase, la geografía debe ser, en la medida que la escuela pueda contrarrestar las influencias hostiles, un medio de disipar estos prejuicios y crear otros sentimientos más dignos de la humanidad. Cuando se menciona el término paz, casi de inmediato surge en nuestra mente de forma asociada su antónimo, ¿no? Guerra. Y esa parece ser una pauta muy usual entre los seres humanos, o al menos eso podría desprenderse de su utilización habitual en la actualidad para justificar todo tipo de estrategias políticas, incluyendo las que a muchos nos parecen que están en las antípodas de la paz. En cualquier caso, este término de la misma manera, como también acabamos de ver, pero pensé que no encontraría motivos cercanos para volver a reflexionar sobre la distinción que magistralmente realizó en los años 60 Johann Galtung, matemático, sociólogo, politólogo, hombre del Renacimiento, entre una situación de paz entendida como aquella en la que no existía una guerra declarada y un concepto ampliado de paz que la considerase como ausencia de violencia personal y ausencia de violencia estructural, la paz positiva y la paz negativa. La paz positiva implica algo más que la mera ausencia de todo tipo de violencia en la medida en que el concepto emergió construido en torno a ideas tales como armonía, cooperación e integración. Se refería también a las acciones para producir las condiciones en las que se pudiera construir la paz. Sobre esto volveré al final. Y decía que pensé que no tenía mucho sentido volver sobre esta distinción y otras asociadas a ella porque, bueno, pensaba que más o menos están ya superados, pero de nuevo un reciente acontecimiento, el resultado del referéndum de la paz en Colombia y las narrativas de los que abogaban por el rechazo a los acuerdos de paz, pues volvió a poner sobre mi mesa la cuestión. Uno de los máximos opositores, Alejandro Ordóñez, procurador general, decía explícitamente que el acuerdo de paz es una amenaza política y es, en últimas, la entrega de parte del territorio nacional. Y, por supuesto, que no se van a reducir los niveles de violencia. Por eso creo que tiene sentido de nuevo volver a reflexionar sobre las geografías de la paz, que entiendo que son las que se centran sobre la paz negativa, y las geografías pacifistas, que serían las que buscan la paz positiva. Sigue teniendo sentido, por más que sea un viejo debate. Y voy a centrarme simplemente en algunos autores bien conocidos que escribieron durante el orden geopolítico de la Guerra Fría, para intentar mostrar luego, a la luz de los escritos de un intelectual latinoamericano, creo que de la máxima importancia, Enrique Dussel, sus escritos sobre la filosofía de la liberación, los principios y características ético-políticos de estas dos aproximaciones a la geografía de la paz, que entienden la paz de modos tan diferentes. Son muchos los hombres y mujeres de Estado, así como intelectuales, que se han aferrado a la vieja afirmación de Clausewitz de que la guerra es la continuación de la política por otros medios. Esta idea contiene la afirmación de que la guerra es de algún modo el estado natural del ser humano, o al menos de las comunidades políticas organizadas. El nacimiento de la geografía moderna con Ratzel está absolutamente enmarcado en esa lógica, y se han diseñado geografías de la paz a partir de estos presupuestos y de forma específica. Vamos a ver un par de ejemplos. En primer lugar, quiero traer a colación un autor que está en los prolegómenos de la Guerra Fría, Nicholas Spiegelman, que en su libro póstumo, The Geography of the Peace, señalaba 3 caminos alternativos a la paz. Decía, uno sería el que defenderían los partidarios de prescindir por completo de la política de poder en las relaciones internacionales y confiar en la cooperación y contención mutua. Otro, del que serían partidarios los que entienden que para mantener el orden internacional es necesaria la fuerza y abogan porque el monopolio de la fuerza de la comunidad mundial se ha otorgado a un superestado. Y finalmente el de los que piensan que domina la política de poder en las relaciones internacionales, pero rechazan la fantasía de los proponentes de un Estado mundial y desean que se ponga en marcha un sistema de seguridad colectiva que proporcionará la fuerza necesaria para garantizar la seguridad de los estados individuales frente a la agresión. Obviamente, él abogaba por este tercer camino, dado que pensaba que no existiría nada parecido a una comunidad mundial y ni siquiera los estados existentes compartirían valores y percepciones. Este camino es el que condujo a la paz caliente a la que se refería ya hace años Peter Taylor durante la Guerra Fría, ¿no? Una situación en la que no se producía una guerra abierta entre las dos superpotencias, pero se multiplicaban las más o menos pequeñas guerras y conflictos entre ellas por intermediación. La centralidad del Estado en estas explicaciones geográfico-políticas es tal que impide el estudio del conflicto desde una perspectiva que pueda ir más allá de los estados, por lo que se tiende a considerar como natural el conflicto entre ellos, aun cuando se pretenda explícitamente dar una orientación antibélica a la disciplina. Este es el caso de otro de los ejemplos que quería traer a colación, el de la geopacífica, Geopacifics, llevado a cabo en los años 40, ya después de la Segunda Guerra Mundial, por otro geógrafo, Griffith Taylor. Él pretendía oponerse a la geopolítica alemana, crear una geografía que fuera diferente, pero viene a caer exactamente en la misma trampa. Sus soluciones a las situaciones de conflicto implican también ejercicios de dominio imperial similares a los de la geopolítica alemana y están enmarcados plenamente en el realismo político, ¿no? Él decía, la geopacífica, Geopacifics, tiene poco en común con las ideas pacifistas, en tanto que tengamos ladrones, debemos de tener policía. Mi panacea para la tensión del mundo es la puesta en práctica de la Carta Atlántica, la Organización del Tratado del Atlántico Norte, en el frente internacional. Si vis pacem para bellum, de este tipo de geografías de la paz, garantizar la seguridad internacional a través de alianzas. Sin embargo, hay otra geografía que también intenta asegurar la paz, pero lo hace de otra manera, precisamente a partir de las denuncias de las premisas de la anterior. Y también intentaré explorar un par de ejemplos durante la misma Guerra Fría. Tenemos que esperar hasta el 68, a lo que Manuel Wallerstein no llama la segunda crisis del sistema mundial, que realmente implica un cambio en los términos culturales, políticos e intelectuales del mismo, ¿no? Para encontrarnos con los ejemplos que quiero traer a colación. El primero es el de William Bunch, que aboga por la geografía como reina de las ciencias de la paz. Creo que supuso un oasis en un desierto académico militarista o ilusamente neutral. Y su obra, quizás al final, yo creo que sintetiza bien en uno de sus libros, en el Nuclear War Atlas, es paradigmática de la geografía a la que me quiero referir con el adjetivo de pacifista, cuyo principal objetivo es alertar a la especie humana del peligro de extinción, de desaparición, especiecidio, specicide, en palabras de Banch. Como consecuencia de la guerra nuclear, amenaza bien real que ni siquiera hoy en día, tras las transformaciones profundas que se han producido, ha desaparecido ni mucho menos. Banch considera que la geografía es una perspectiva idónea para la realización de esa tarea, por cinco argumentos. Primero, la utilidad de la geografía para la guerra le permite mostrar adecuadamente los problemas que la misma acarrea a los humanos. Segundo, puede facilitar remedios específicos contra la guerra, disminuyendo cuando menos los niveles de violencia. En tercer lugar, es pedagógicamente más clara y adecuada que otras disciplinas porque se ocupa de hechos que todos podemos ver. En cuarto lugar, la geografía es la única ciencia integradora que se ocupa de todas las fuerzas principales implicadas en el hecho bélico: la naturaleza, el hombre y las máquinas. Y en quinto lugar, las estrechas relaciones entre la geografía y la astronomía en su nacimiento pueden ser revividas en la actualidad para formular una ciencia de los espacios ocupados por la humanidad. Además de Banch, durante la Guerra Fría se realizaron un buen número de investigaciones geográficas y de otro tipo sobre las consecuencias del conflicto nuclear. Citar simplemente uno de los conocidos, trabajos geográficos, el de Openshaw, Stedman y Green, en los efectos potenciales de una guerra nuclear sobre la población civil en Gran Bretaña. Pero la guerra nuclear no es el único objetivo de la denuncia de la geografía pacifista. También se estudian las consecuencias de guerras de carácter convencional, como por ejemplo el propio Banch hacía respecto a los niños muertos en la guerra de Vietnam a causa de los bombardeos norteamericanos. Pero el trabajo pionero, a mi juicio, es el de Yves Lacoste, el trabajo sobre los bombardeos de los diques del Río Rojo en Vietnam, que independientemente del desarrollo posterior de su pensamiento y el de la llamada Escuela Geopolítica Francesa, de algún modo abrió una nueva vía de investigación y marcó una ruptura con el pasado de la disciplina, ya que mostraba cómo la destrucción causada en aquella región no es solo la consecuencia involuntaria de la enormidad de los medios de destrucción practicados hoy sobre un cierto número de objetivos, decía él, por la guerra tecnológica e industrial. Son también el resultado de una estrategia deliberada y minuciosa cuyos diferentes elementos son científicamente coordinados en el tiempo y en el espacio. En efecto, la geografía pacifista no es solo relevante por su denuncia de la guerra nuclear o de otras guerras, sino que también es muy importante tener en consideración su papel en la desmilitarización de la disciplina. El pasado sangriento y comprometido de la disciplina que denunciaba Wisner en los años 80, pues se comenzaron a suceder análisis geográficos sobre la guerra o la paz que ya Virginie ha mencionado y sobre los que espero que O'Loughlin se ocupe al final de la conferencia. En definitiva, la idea de la geografía pacifista, Banch, es que intentando alcanzar la paz nuclear, resolvemos una diminuta geografía, quizás indicando la naturaleza pacífica del trabajo mismo. Alguien podría caer en la tentación de presentar estas geografías de la paz que he denominado las geografías pacifistas como las versiones malvada y bondadosa del mismo tópico, la conservadora y la progresista, pero se situaría en la superficie del fenómeno, estaría lejos de entender la cuestión. Malos y buenos en función de qué o de quién. Intentando ir un poco más allá de la explicación, utilizaré los escritos, como decía antes, de Enrique Dussel sobre la filosofía de la liberación, en los que intenta mostrar la imposibilidad de los universalismos, la necesidad de hacer una aproximación pluriversal a la política y en ellos hace una fundamental distinción entre moral y ética que creo que es aceptable aplicar a estos dos tipos de geografía. Dussel plantea que el dicho homo homini lupus es la definición real, es decir, política, del ego cogito y de la filosofía europea moderna y contemporánea. Es la expresión ontológica de la ideología de la clase burguesa triunfante en la Revolución Inglesa y que dominará el mundo del modo de producción capitalista. E intenta desmontar esa filosofía dominante y construir una filosofía de la liberación. Comienza su argumentación a partir de la proxemia, de la aproximación a los otros en la fraternidad, de la aproximación a la justicia que puede permitirnos ver libertades distintas a las nuestras. La proxemia implica intentar conocer a los entes, los objetos, las cosas, las personas que marcan la pluralidad, frente a la totalidad del mundo que marca la unidad. Es lo proxémico frente a lo ontológico. En este sentido, desde mi punto de vista, las geografías de la paz entroncan con el pensamiento dominante occidental sobre la inevitabilidad de que las relaciones entre los estados sean relaciones de fuerza, mientras que las geografías pacifistas cuestionarían críticamente esa idea. Geografías pacifistas adoptarían una metafísica dusseliana, es decir, en sus palabras, un saber pensar el mundo desde la exterioridad alterativa del otro. La geografía de la paz sería resultado de una conciencia moral, mientras que la geografía pacifista sería resultado de una conciencia ética. La distinción entre conciencia moral y ética en Dussel es interesante, ¿no? Dice que la conciencia moral es la aplicación a una decisión concreta de los principios vigentes del sistema. Por el contrario, la conciencia ética es la capacidad que se tiene de escuchar la voz del otro. Palabra transontológica que irrumpe desde más allá del sistema vigente. Puede que la protesta justa del otro ponga en cuestión los principios morales del sistema. Solo quien tiene una conciencia ética puede aceptar la puesta en cuestión a partir del criterio absoluto, el otro como otro en la justicia. De este modo, Dussel cuestiona la unidad de la ética y la pluralidad de las morales que planteaba Hegel, a partir de una ontología de la totalidad. Dice, de manera que la resolución de la particularidad de las morales de los diversos pueblos alcanza el nivel de una ética universal en la fetichización de la moral del pueblo dominador del mundo de cada época histórica. Por otro lado, la alteridad sagrada de la geografía pacifista sería sustituida por la enemistad que entraña peligro y que sería el fundamento de las geografías de la paz. En otras palabras, el otro, desposeído de su carácter sagrado, se convierte en un enemigo que se puede e incluso se debe, si constituye un peligro absoluto, eliminar o matar si queremos ser menos correctos. Para ello, las personas deben ser degradadas de su dignidad humana y convertidas en poco más que cosas o instrumentos, y sus rostros convertidos en máscara, porque, dice Dussel, la máscara ya no es otro, ya no es rostro, ya no interpela, es un mueble más del entorno. Se pasa junto al otro y simplemente se dice un obrero, o un indígena, o un negro, o un pakistaní desnutrido. La práctica de la liberación, según Dussel, implica al menos tener en cuenta los mecanismos y principios de la moral dominante y el deber ético de desarticularlos. Esa es la lógica, entiendo yo, de la geografía pacifista. Pero precisamente ese conocimiento profundo de los mecanismos de la moral dominante es el que nos permite entender que los ejecutores de la misma, los que proclaman los caminos más adecuados para la geografía de la paz, no son monstruos, simplemente se ajustan a la moral y a los principios dominantes. Para terminar, habría que comenzar refiriéndonos al eurocentrismo, al estadocentrismo, perdón, para explicar las difíciles relaciones de la geografía política en el momento de su nacimiento, con buena parte del pensamiento crítico que se elaboraba en aquel momento. Gini también ya ha mostrado cómo una teoría crítica del momento, el marxismo, abandona o no se centra sobre ninguna aproximación espacial, mientras que sí lo hacen los anarquistas como Reclio o como Procotti. Y desde luego, con excepción de estas obras, hasta después del 68, poco nos vamos a encontrar. Y quería terminar con una puntualización que yo creo que es conveniente hacer sobre las geografías pacifistas. Y es que no son geografías pasivas. Es decir, buscar la paz no es incompatible con actuar a favor de ella. No se trata solamente de una paz negativa, sino de una paz positiva. Y esto requiere reevaluar, y Dussel lo hace en sus trabajos, las luchas de los movimientos de liberación que se producen en la periferia del sistema, la periferia del mundo, que no serían contradictorias con los movimientos pacifistas del centro. Su fundamento metafísico sería, según Dussel, la vida humana como el ser mismo que es puesto en peligro por el armamentismo del centro y por la injusticia de la periferia. Si la vida en peligro en el centro por los misiles atómicos y la periferia por el hambre y la injusticia, enfrenta la lógica del profit y la guerra con los movimientos pacifistas en el centro y, escribía en los 90, en El Salvador con las armas en la mano. Posiblemente no haya formas universales de buen vivir, a pesar de los intentos de la Organización de las Naciones Unidas, de desarrollar ideas como un bien común de la humanidad. Por eso debemos de esforzarnos en entender de forma pluriversa el mundo, a riesgo de quedar prendidos en las morales particulares de nuestras formaciones sociales respectivas. Bunch, comunista durante toda su vida, al final de su libro sobre Fitzgerald, sobre las expediciones a Fitzgerald y la revolución en el barrio de Chicago, entendía que había que volver sobre las personas individuales. ¿Cambia? Ah, bien. Y quería terminar con esta cita. Para construir una sociedad libre, los sueños individuales deben hacerse realidad. ¿Dónde puede uno ver cumplidos sus sueños? ¿Dónde puede uno encontrar tranquilidad de espíritu? En los momentos en los que uno se siente muy bien. Los viernes por la noche, un día de picnic soleado con unas cervezas, a los 19 años con el amor de uno, cuando tu padre está orgulloso de ti. En esos momentos todos tus radares defensivos se apagan. Ninguno de tus generadores de resistencia se enciende y tú solo quieres sentarte tranquilamente y disfrutar del momento. Muchas gracias.
So now we'll have Professor Praveen Saktarshi. He works at the Department of Environmental Sciences of the Savitribai University in India. And he will speak on geo-environmental approach to peace and justice.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm really happy to be here with the fellow delegates who are coming from various corners of the world and committed to peace in the world of various races and various religions. So, ladies and gentlemen, especially the enthusiastic young volunteers who are working hard for the conference. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm really, at the same time, I would like to sensitize all of you that I'm not that much happy to be here for this conference because I have caused the carbon footprint of 36 tons by coming from Pune to La Paz, which is 100 times more than a tribal family, solely dependent on firewood, and their consumption of firewood, as per my study shows that in India, that it is about 0.36 tons per year for a family of 6 to 8 persons. in tribal areas of India. So this means that I have also grabbed the resources of 100 families, energy resources, which are meant for cooking their food. So ladies and gentlemen, let me talk about my topic is peace and justice, geo-environmental approach for peace and justice. Justice is always denied if violence is there. Unless and until peace, what you have suggested is positive peace, is restored, justice cannot be restored. Justice for all. I mean peace for all and justice for all. The outline of my topic is, I will just go through some examples of environmental impact of war, economic impact of war, human cost of war, and who are the culprits. Unless and until we know the culprits, we can find out the solution through geo-environmental studies and Gandhian philosophy. Oh, sorry. It is with me, no? Okay. The environmental impact is impact of war is on ecology, ecological toxicity. Especially especially in ecology, I will just tell you one example, that if heavy metals are entered into ecosystem, then that can remain in the ecosystem forever. So it is playing with the future generations' future. And that's why it ought to be banned. And also this kind of system, suppose ecosystem is polluted or it is disturbed, depleted, then the peace is denied forever in that particular area. So huge carbon emission is there. Army, and another thing is that the army centers, army activities, defense activities are above all. They are considered to be super activities for EPA, for the study of environmental impact, or for study of the Environmental Protection Act. They are not in the purview of Environmental Protection Act. The carbon emission, you can just read this and find out that one bomber can emit, how much it can be emit, how much it consumes the oil. It is written that different aeroplanes, how they consume the oil, and we can just consider that some 1, 2, 0 and again 0 plus million cars can run in 1 year. So this means that one activity in Iraq is equivalent to so many millions of cars consuming gas. So that's why peace is beneficial for us. Then the examples, these examples are quite famous, that what has happened to the forest destruction is there, ecological fragmentation of forested area. Again, it is very difficult to regenerate forest. It is the soil formation, ecologically it is said that the 1-inch layer of soil can be formed in 100 years and we deplete it within seconds. So soil losses are there. Now coming to this economic impact of war. Economic impact is always you can say that see this picture, that who is the biggest armed dealer or armed exporter, and what is their vested interest is that war should be there. Their vested interests are that there should be some phobia, sometimes Islamic phobia, sometimes Indian phobia. Such kind of phobia should be there, and then only the common man can support the war. Nationalism is again a pseudo nationalism. Somebody says that we are for America, America first. In our country, our leaders say India first. Means what? this doesn't mean that the poorest of poor Americans can achieve development. No. Only thing is that the richest of the richest should achieve the safe thing. These are again the table showing the expenditure on war and homeland security. So the 10 important countries are exporting see the size, maximum, who is the leader. Then it can be compared, this expenditure can be compared with the expenditure done by the United Nations to achieve sustainability, to restrict the or to reduce the biodiversity depletion, to restore the environment and to restore sustainability. Now all these things you can see that together the expenditure on war is more than that. So this is the picture, and that's why geographers must take it a serious note of it. Now coming to this question that who can afford the war? So in political geography, we have learned many theories, but we haven't touched this point. Who are the major players in the war? So the societies or countries which are interested in exploitation of resources. Exploitation of resources leads to violence. Always it is necessary that violence, in a violent way, you can exploit the resources. Those who overlook human values, and human values are not considered. Those who promote high consumerism, then always the high consumerism is promoted by such people, those who are interested in wars, because they are interested in economies. So, and in these days, media has become so powerful, electronic media, and that's why they can do the propaganda of this. And who are the beneficiaries of wars? So, defense industrial complex. So we poor Indians think that our IT industry is the great, but that's a peanut compared to the defense industrial complex revenue. The construction industry, so that is also getting the beneficial. Pharmaceutical industries, so many industries. So this is a conflict between humanity and corporates. So what is the law of corporate economy? Go for war or face economic depression. And that's why war is, they are interested in war. Human cost of war, you know that the human life is danger at risk, and also the human cost of war is displacement is there on large scale. Again, rehabilitation cost is there. Again, especially for women, they don't have any empowerment. Those who are the war affected women, they have to do some occupation without their consent. So that is the important thing. So war affected countries continue to rank extremely low in a global ranking of political freedom with various compared to the other countries, those who are powerful countries. So working solution is there. International Peace Bureau is working, but we have seen that how their efforts are just like peanuts compared to huge expenditure on war. United Nations Environmental Program is also trying to do some peace work. Then multilateral peace operation database, some peace organizations are there. One example, the popular example, you must be knowing that white helmet, that is also there. So that example is given here. So peace has been advocated by many philosophers and also by many organizers, organizations, voluntary organizations. Now coming to this geo-environmental approach. What is geo-environmental approach? Means the development should be achieved for the benefit of local people. And this is a sustainable, considering the principles of sustainability. So the geographers can do this for such things, such kind of studies. Non-violent way of allocation of livelihood resources. So livelihood resources may be simple, basic resources that should not be grabbed. So Bolivia is the best example of the privatization of water. So many people fought against that corporates, and now it is now you can see that the making water more and more costly means making deprivation for larger section of society. So this is the geo-environmental. So methods of geo-environmental studies can be, in a nutshell, can be said that the appraisal of resources, both human resources and the natural resources, must be understood. Then the socio-economic contribution should be studied. Environmental accounting should be carried out. Then participatory approach should be adopted, and cost-benefit analysis, cash flow analysis must be studied. And then only geo-environmental studies can be. So I will just give you one example of environmental accounting, which is accepted as a system of environmental and economic accounts, which is called as CR. So it is a useful economic tool, and it is useful for policymakers, and they can understand the indicators of development. And all these indicators can be converted into environmentally adjusted indicators like environmentally adjusted GDP or NDP, national domestic production. So these are the components of environmental accounting. Natural resources are considered to be important, and their accounting should also be done. Then the pollutants and materials. What is the cost of pollution? What is the cost of pollution? How you can measure either the cost of compliance or the cost of its impact. And its impact maybe, suppose the human life. The cost of human life in Bolivia is different than in California. So this is again so many things, challenging things, and the young geographers can definitely tackle those things. So natural resources, all such natural resources, I have just given one example of how the forest resources can be accounted for. Then using the model, it is the example of Gujarat forest area. Then I come to this Gandhian philosophy and world peace. So Gandhian philosophy, Mahatma Gandhi, we proudly say that he is father of India. But in Stanford University, one senior professor told me that, oh, don't be so mean. He is the father of modern civilization. So this is his philosophy is simple, that always. So it is very, in a nutshell, I will just look into the violence and non-violence thing. So his way of confronting the violent people is a non-violent way, peaceful way, and his weapons are satyagraha, means the truth, and how he can fight against the big powers. So he has given the philosophy that many people can organize together and go against the big powers. One example I will tell you that I would like to share with you. In Canada, there was the air strip, and that strip was used to test the new bombers by Air Force, American Air Force. The American Canadian government, they have their friendly relationship, and Canadian government has given permission, but the tribal people there, they organized and they just stand on the strip like this peacefully, but without saying no to, so you can arrest us, arrest our bodies, but not our soul. So they stood there, and finally the American government has to withdraw this test in that tribal area of Canada. So even today, this kind of non-violent way to revolt against the big powers can be suitable. So armed race is not suitable. We have seen in the history that you may be Marxist, you may be socialist, but if you are in the arms race, then you are also again the culprit for the demolishing human values and ethical values. So that's why geo-environmental planning and similar to the Gandhian ideas of economy, and he was saying that the yes, he was not against the technology, but he said that the appropriation of technology should be there so that the deprived of employment, they should have a right to earn for their livelihood. So his methods I have also given. Social ideals means the equity is his major principle, and these are the references. Thank you very much.
So unfortunately, we don't have time for questions, and well, we already have a considerable delay. So that's it then. Thank you very much. And we'll have a break now, and thereafter we'll have a second plenary session chaired by Sir Kupa. Thank you very much.
Ser espectadores.